As someone who has had 4 full months of paid maternity leave, to hiring a full-time nanny, to now having a toddler in full-time daycare, I've seen the gamut of how much childcare expenses are, or how much time I take away from work in order to stay at home with my daughter. In this video, we're going to be talking about whether or not childcare is worth it and how to determine how that fits in your budget. Hey guys, it's Justine with Debt Free Millennials, the channel to help you crush your debt and live payment free. Now, I have an almost 2-year-old daughter, and as a first-time mom, I really wanted to make sure that I was set up correctly in order to cover childcare with my daughter. This is such a personal choice, whether or not you want to be a stay-at-home parent or continue to work and send your child either off to a daycare or have a nanny come into your home and take care of your child. It's such a personal decision, but it's also a big financial decision, which is why I loved using Marissa Lida's Budgeting for Baby workbook and digital course. Her course was awesome. I took it while I was pregnant, and then I also kept and printed out her workbook. This has helped me cover questions about insurance and how that works with having a baby. Also, she has a really great section on how to help you determine whether or not you should stay at home or continue working, and what that looks like in terms of impacting your budget. So I thought it would be really fun to take a look at my personal budget and kind of do a mock budget of what it costs to keep somebody here with a nanny versus daycare versus me just quitting my full-time job as a content creator and staying at home with my daughter. So let's consider this. The average cost of full-time daycare in the United States is $1,230 per month. Now, I wanted to know exactly what this looked like in my area, and I live in the Los Angeles County area, and I actually found that the average cost of full-time care in Los Angeles was $1,388 per month, with the average ranging anywhere from $309 per month to $3,020 per month. Now, if you're like, what's the big range right there, $300 per month? I was actually talking with another mom in my community who said that there are actually co-op daycare facilities within the area where it's actually run by volunteer parents. So once a month or twice a month, you as a parent actually go in and help take care of a whole bunch of littles during the day, and it keeps the cost really, really low because you're essentially working for free. There's some costs involved in terms of actually like paying for a facility to house all these little toddlers in, but it could be really, really cost effective versus something where you're going into a daycare that has full-time employees. They provide snacks and breakfast, lunch, diapers, all those things. You're actually going to be paying a premium. Now, in my area, my daycare costs $507 per week, which includes all those things I mentioned. All the food, all the diapers, all the milk, everything's included in that fee, which is really nice because I don't have to worry about preparing any breakfast or lunch for my daughter. I can just get her dressed, ready to go drop off, and she's sitting down and having breakfast as soon as she gets into the daycare. Now, if you're considering a nanny, consider that this is most likely that nanny's a full-time position, especially if you're paying them Monday through Friday for full-time care. Now, the federal minimum wage is $15 per hour. And when you're talking about hiring a nanny in a state like California, oftentimes nannies are going to be looking at least for $18 and above. That's been my experience working with a nanny in San Diego and Los Angeles, and we paid $20 per hour for full-time care. I've also heard of other nannies charging upwards of $25 per hour, which is not unreasonable given the circumstances of the economy. And also, again, this is their full-time job. All right, so if you're considering if you're pregnant with your first baby, or you already had a baby and you're kind of maybe determining whether or not childcare is right for you, I always start with a pros and cons list. So let's talk about the pros of childcare. First, I think the biggest thing is you get to maintain your income. You get to maintain your job and continue working and bringing in that salary. Also, you just have more time to run errands and do chores uninterrupted while your child's at school. You're able to do those things without the interruptions of a toddler or 2-year-old running around asking for you, asking to be picked up. The next is your child gets to be in introduced to other kids their same age. That peer-to-peer connection is so crucial for their development, and especially during the times of a pandemic where a lot of us were keeping our children home. Now that things are kind of opening back up again, it's so nice to be able to see my daughter play and interact with kids her age. Also, your child thrives under the structure and curriculum of an expert. These daycare providers and teachers are actually really invested in your child and take the time to create specific curriculum to help them grow and develop. Lastly, there is someone to give your child one-on-one attention, not to mention, especially me working from home, I really thrive on keeping my home tidy and organized throughout the day. Even though I know my daughter's going to come back home and just create a tornado out of what I have left of my house, it's just really nice to have a working environment, especially for a lot of us working from home, to keep those things nice, clean, and organized without having your child just kind of running throughout the day, causing a mess, making a mess. Okay, with every pro list, there's a con list, and the con list of childcare, I think one of the biggest things, especially that moms struggle with, is that you lose out on valuable time with your child while they're young. And I think that's why a lot of us will kind of refrain from putting their child into daycare early on, because they don't want to miss out on those younger years. And that first year when they're from newborn to 1 year old, is just, there's so much change and development that happens, and they grow so fast that you just don't want to miss out. Also, another big con is this will end up being the biggest expense in your budget compared to your rent or your mortgage payment, and probably compared to your debt payment. This is going to be a big expense. So you want to make sure that whatever care that you're bringing in for your child is actually going to be worth that expense. And another con is your child is definitely exposed to more sickness and disease. In fact, we are on our second week of daycare, and already Quinn got sick. She got a fever and a runny nose and all this stuff, and got me sick. And so we were out of school for 2 days, where I had to take time off of work. My husband had to take time off of work to care for our sick child before returning to school. That can be a big deal breaker for some, and for a lot of families, I know they can attest. Tell me in the comments, have you had this experience? I think most parents are going to say yes. Your kid gets sick a lot as they are building their immunity, and not to mention the sickness and disease, but also you lose control over how your child is cared for. Now, that's something that all parents are going to have to go through, because when your child actually gets to, kindergarten age, you're going to lose control of how they are cared for in a traditional school system. So I think that's also something that you're going to have to balance and really understand that. Especially for me, I'm such a controlling person that I need to learn to let go and let things happen naturally, and let children be independent little people, because we want to raise them to be little human beings that can take ownership and accountability of their own bodies and minds. All right, so all that said, we made the pros and cons list of childcare. Let's actually see how this impacts our budget. So I thought it'd be really interesting to take a look at my real budget and compare how the different scenarios work out, how much money I would be saving or losing in each scenario. Let's hop into the budget. Okay, so this is a look at my budget spreadsheet for 2023. Right now, I'm planning on a total monthly income between my husband and I of $11,000. So let's take a look at what it would be to put our daughter into full-time daycare Monday through Friday. Now, I said that our daycare for full-time care is $2,200 a month, or $507 per week. So I included that up here in my fixed budgeted items, because that amount is not going to change. You can see my rent is $4,200 a month. I know. So what that does is my total monthly expenses with everything else, I still have about $836 left over, which, okay, not terrible. I still have some money and room to play with. But if I change this to a full-time nanny that is paid $20 an hour, then we are looking at $20 an hour for 40 hours per week. We're looking at $3,200 per month. So now I'm actually negative $163, which means I would have to cut either some fun stuff or maybe cut down the $1,000 savings contribution that I've been putting towards the down payment slash home upgrades, because we are looking to purchase our first home sometime in the near future. So maybe I cut that down to what, $850, $825. So a little bit of cut into our savings, but it would go more towards that full-time nanny. Okay, now let's take a look at just keeping my daughter at home with me full-time, which means I would have to significantly cut down on the amount of work time that I spend on my business. Now, if you've watched my videos in the past, then you know I am a full-time content creator. I run my YouTube channel full-time, among other ways that I make income from Debt-Free Millennials. So if I get rid of the nanny care, so that frees up $3,200 a month, but that is probably going to reduce the amount of income that I'm bringing home, definitely. So I'm definitely cutting back on my freelance work. I'm probably going to cut down on the amount of videos that I can put out on YouTube. So let's say that at least half of my income would be reduced out of that. And let's say I bring home maybe around $2,000 per month. So let's say this ends up being closer to maybe $9,000. Okay. So if it's 9,000 or maybe even 8,000, okay. So if it's $8,000 per month, then I'm still netting about $200 in savings. Let's say if I can really push myself and make myself work either during nap times, before she gets up in the morning, or after she goes to bed, then maybe I could get it to $9,000 and I could net about $1,200 in that scenario. So I could potentially put more towards the down payment. The thing about this scenario though, is that I actually have to think about what I really value. What brings me joy? I find that my work in doing Debt-Free Millennials is such a passion of mine that it would be really difficult for me to give that up. If you're not passionate about your job and you're just like, and you could pocket an extra $1,200, then maybe staying at home with your child is worth it. I also keep in mind what brings me energy and brings me joy. I love spending one-on-one time with my daughter. I also know when she's home from school or we have extended weekends that those days can easily be 12 to 13 hours long. You're up with your child when they get up in the morning. You're with them all day long until they go to bed, and Quinn usually goes to bed around 7:30. So 12 to 13 hour days with your child. For me, it can be it's so much fun. It can be very energy draining. So when I think about what brings me energy and what's going to refuel my tank so I can be 100% for my daughter, it's something like being able to take a step back, work on something that I truly love, like Debt-Free Millennials, also giving myself enough time for those self-care moments, whether that's journaling, exercising, meditating, any of those things I really like to be able to give myself time and attention to. If I know that I would have to squeeze in my work in these little chunks, either before she wakes up or during nap time or after she goes to bed, there really does not leave a whole lot of time to do self-care on top of work, on top of being a full-time stay-at-home mom. So this scenario, even though I feel like there would be some money left over, it actually is pretty comparable to if I did the daycare. So if I'm saving $1,200 by staying home, but I have a reduction in income, if I do daycare, if I put that back in, daycare, $2,200, and then I keep my income at $11,000 plus, that's really only a $200 difference, which I'm totally okay with doing that. And again, I could still put more money towards some of my savings. So as you can see, either staying at home with your child or paying for daycare or a nanny really is such a personal decision, but also a financial decision that impacts your budget. I think it's important that you sit down as a couple, if you're working with your partner on this, to talk about the different benefits, the different cons, and then also how it impacts you financially and your other financial goals, depending on what option you choose to best fit your needs and fit your child needs as well. Is your child truly ready for daycare, or would you be more comfortable having somebody come in and help you either full-time or part-time as a nanny? Or maybe you just truly value that relationship and that schedule of being a stay-at-home parent. Don't forget, if you need help with this, I highly recommend checking out Budgeting for Baby by Marissa Lida. This workbook and this digital course, she has videos that explain each of the sections. So not only are you getting the action items of actually writing down exactly what those expenses are and getting your questions answered, but you're also really understanding that from somebody who's gone through it themselves. I will leave my affiliate link for her course down below for you to check out, and let me know, what are you doing currently with your child, or what are you thinking about doing with your child? Daycare, nanny, or staying at home? Let me know in the comments. Give this video a big thumbs up, and I'll catch you in the next one.